Stolen Focus, Why You Can't Pay Attention, and How to Think Deeply Again, by Johann Hari. Imagine standing in the strangest room you've ever seen, Memphis, Tennessee. The carpet is shag, the plants are plastic, there's a waterfall cascading down the wall, and somehow, impossibly, there's green carpet climbing up the walls and onto the ceiling itself. You're in Graceland, Elvis Presley's legendary home. For 19-year-old Adam, this moment should be electric. 10 years ago, as a 9-year-old kid belting out Jailhouse Rock at the top of his lungs, he made his Godfather promise, cross his heart promise, that one day they'd make this pilgrimage together. But here's the thing, Adam isn't looking at any of it. He's hunched in the corner, bathed in that familiar pale blue glow, thumb flicking endlessly through Snapchat. His godfather, Johann Hari, our author, feels something rising in his chest. They'd traveled 4,000 miles for this moment. One condition, phone stays off, be here, be present. But the promise kept shattering, again and again. And look around, dozens of other tourists, each clutching their tour guide iPad, staring at a screen version of the very room they're standing in. Nobody's actually looking at anything real, just screens. Everywhere, screens. Something snaps. Hari grabs the phone out of his godson's hand and shouts, "We can't live like this! You're missing your one and only life!" But as the words hang in that bizarre carpeted air, something else hits him. The rage he feels toward Adam, toward all these zombie tourists. That's not really about them at all. It's about himself. He's been feeling it too, that slipping sensation. Like his brain is cracking apart. He buys towers of books he never opens. Hours vanish into social media black holes. He's constantly running, breathless, up a down escalator that never stops moving. This single raw moment in Graceland became a spark. Johann Hari, an investigative journalist and best-selling author, decided to find out what was actually happening to us. He spent 3 years traveling 30,000 miles, interviewing over 250 leading experts, from neuroscientists in Moscow to sociologists in Melbourne, all chasing the same question: why can't we focus anymore? The result is Stolen Focus, a book that sold hundreds of thousands of copies and lit a fire under a global conversation. What he discovered will probably shock you, but also free you. Your inability to focus isn't your fault. It's not some personal weakness or character flaw. Your attention, he argues, has been systematically stolen by powerful forces, from big tech to the way we structure work, school, even childhood itself. We're going to follow Hari as he uncovers 12 deep causes behind our collective attention crisis. By the end, you'll not only understand why you feel so scattered, but you'll also discover there's a way back. A path to reclaim your mind, think deeply again, and maybe even start your own attention rebellion. This isn't just a book summary, it's a journey into the fight for our own minds. Our story truly begins in a quiet beach town called Provincetown, perched at the very tip of Cape Cod. After the Graceland disaster, Hari made a radical decision. Convinced that his lack of discipline and his phone were the twin villains, he booked a small room by the sea for 3 months. No smartphone, no internet. A total digital detox for the first time in 20 years. The first week felt like paradise. He bought what can only be described as a, quote, grandma phone, a jitterbug with comically large buttons designed for the elderly. He woke not to a screaming alarm, but to sunlight and ocean waves. The first night, he slept for 15 hours straight. He described it like finally handing over 2 screaming babies you'd been holding for years to a responsible babysitter. The frantic buzz in his skull just stopped. He felt something unfamiliar. Oh, right, he thought. This is calm. He was convinced he'd cracked the code. Solution found. Ditched the tech. Problem solved. But then week 2 arrived, and everything went sideways. He woke up in an angry panic, his body screaming for his phone, for email, for that endless stream of updates. It felt like a phantom limb. When he tried reading the classic novels he'd brought, his brain refused to cooperate. He found himself speed-reading Charles Dickens like a frantic blog post, hunting for bullet points. Okay, orphan, got it, what's next? His mind couldn't slow down. He realized with horror that he was in withdrawal. He missed the validation, those constant little digital pings saying, I see you, you exist, you matter. This painful realization was his first real clue. The problem wasn't just the technology, something deeper had happened. His brain had been rewired, and simply yanking out the plug wasn't enough. He had to understand what had been done to him, and to all of us. The first culprit is almost absurdly simple, the sheer tsunami of information crashing over us. Hari flew to Denmark to meet Sune Lehmann, a physicist who ran the largest study ever conducted on a simple question: is our collective attention span actually shrinking? By analyzing massive datasets, Twitter trends, Google searches, movie ticket sales, even the rise and fall of topics in books since the 1880s, Lehmann's team found definitive proof. Yes, something fundamental is changing. For over a century, topics have been flickering in and out of public attention faster and faster. The internet didn't start this trend, but it threw gasoline on the fire. What's causing this? Lehmann's team built complex models and found one clear mechanism. The more information you pump into a system, the less time people can spend on any single piece. We're trying to drink from a fire hose. In 1986, the average person was exposed to about 40 newspapers worth of information daily. By 2007, that had exploded to 174 newspapers a day. This relentless flood forces us to skim, to jump, just to keep our heads above water. As Lehmann put it, what we're sacrificing is depth. Anything requiring depth is suffering. It's pulling us onto the surface. This constant task jumping comes with brutal consequences. Hari traveled to MIT to meet Professor Earl Miller, one of the world's top neuroscientists. Miller explained a fundamental, unchangeable fact. Your brain can only consciously produce 1 or 2 thoughts at a time. That's it. Limited capacity. The whole idea of multitasking? A myth. What we're actually doing is juggling, switching our attention back and forth at high speed, and every switch has a cost. First, there's what's called the switch cost effect. Every time you get distracted and then try to return to a task, your brain has to reconfigure itself. You have to remember where you were, what you were thinking. That takes time and mental energy. If you're checking texts while working, you're not just losing the seconds on the text, you're losing the much longer period it takes to get your brain back on track. One study found that being constantly interrupted by emails and calls caused a temporary IQ drop of 10 points. That's twice the cognitive hit of smoking marijuana. Second, constant switching makes you more error-prone. Your thinking becomes shallow because so much brain power is spent just backtracking and correcting mistakes. Third, it murders creativity. New ideas emerge when your brain has uninterrupted time to connect different pieces of knowledge. Constant switching denies your brain that crucial space. The average office worker is now interrupted every 3 minutes. Most never get even 1 uninterrupted hour in a typical day. As Miller put it, we've created a perfect storm of cognitive degradation. So if our brains are designed for deep, single-task focus, how do we actually access that state? This led Hari to the work of a remarkable psychologist named Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi. Mihaly's story is extraordinary. As a boy in Italy during World War II, he hid from Nazi bombs near the hanging corpses of executed men. Watching the adult world collapse around him, he became convinced that grown-ups had no clue how to live a good life. So he dedicated himself to figuring out what actually makes life worth living. He started studying artists, rock climbers, chess players, people who could lose themselves in an activity for hours with no obvious external reward. They all described something similar: a state where they became so absorbed that their sense of self melted away, time disappeared, and they felt carried along by the experience itself. He named it flow. Flow, Hari discovered, is the deepest form of focus we're capable of. It's the antidote to distraction, but it doesn't just happen. To achieve flow, you need 3 things. 1. Choose a single, clearly defined goal. You must be monotasking. 2. That goal must actually matter to you. Our brains are designed to focus on what's meaningful. 3. The task should be right at the edge of your abilities, challenging enough to engage you, but not so hard you become anxious. Back in Provincetown, miserable and phone-hungry, Hari realized he'd created a vacuum. He'd removed distractions but hadn't replaced them with anything meaningful. So he turned to his long-planned novel. He forced himself to write every day on his broken, offline laptop. It was torture at first, but by the 4th week, flow states started arriving. He'd lose himself in the work, and suddenly the craving for distraction vanished. The lesson hit him hard. To escape distraction, removing what's wrong isn't enough. You must add what's right, replace distraction with flow. But even with flow, something was still missing. Hari found himself taking long, aimless walks along the beach, hours without a podcast or phone, just letting thoughts drift. At first, he felt guilty. Wasn't this the opposite of focus? He discovered another group of scientists challenging traditional views of attention. For over a century, psychologists used a spotlight metaphor for attention, narrowing focus onto one thing. But what happens when the spotlight turns off? Neuroscientist Marcus Reichel discovered that even when our minds seem idle, a specific brain network lights up with activity. He called it the default mode network. This is mind-wandering, daydreaming, and far from being a failure of attention, it's a different, essential form of attention. When your mind wanders, 3 crucial things happen. 1. You make sense of your life, processing what you've learned and connecting it to your experiences. 2. You make new connections. This is often when creative breakthroughs happen, when you step away and let your unconscious work. 3. You engage in mental time travel, reflecting on the past and planning the future. In our hyperstimulated world, we've obliterated the spaces for mind wandering. Every spare moment, waiting in line, riding the bus, is now filled with staring at screens. We're suffering not just from a crisis of focused attention, but a crisis of wandering attention, robbing us of our ability to make sense of our lives. As his Provincetown experiment continued, Hari noticed something else. He was sleeping deeply, waking refreshed for the first time since childhood. This led him to investigate a factor affecting us all, the quiet epidemic of exhaustion. He interviewed Dr. Charles Keisler, a top sleep expert at Harvard. Keisler explained that 40% of Americans are chronically sleep-deprived, getting less than the bare minimum of 7 hours nightly. This isn't trivial. Stay awake for just 19 hours, and your cognitive impairment equals being legally drunk. When you're exhausted, your brain doesn't just slow down. Parts of it literally fall asleep while you're awake, a state called local sleep. This causes attentional blinks, tiny moments where your focus just cuts out. We try masking this with caffeine, but as another expert explained, caffeine doesn't give you energy. It just slaps a post-it note over your fuel gauge, hiding how empty you really are. Why does sleep matter so much? While we're unconscious, our brains are frantically active. They consolidate memories, transferring learning from short-term to long-term storage. And remarkably, they perform a kind of brainwashing. A watery fluid washes through, flushing out toxic waste products, what one scientist playfully calls brain cell poop. An uncleaned brain gets clogged and struggles to function. But Hari realized these factors, information overload, multitasking, loss of flow, no mind wandering, exhaustion, were only symptoms. To find the disease's source, he had to go to Silicon Valley, to the heart of the machine redesigning our world. There, he met Tristan Harris, a former Google design ethicist. Harris's story starts with an unusual skill, magic. As a kid, he learned that magic's secret isn't tricking the eye, it's manipulating attention. Magicians understand our psychological blind spots and exploit them to create illusions. At Stanford, Harris enrolled in a class called the Persuasive Technology Lab, taught by Professor B.J. Fogg. This lab figured out how to use psychology to design technology that changes people's behavior without them knowing. It was a class for modern-day magicians. Many students, including Instagram's future creators, went on to build the apps dominating our lives. They learned principles from behaviorist B.F. Skinner, who discovered you could train pigeons to perform bizarre actions with carefully timed rewards. The hearts, likes, and retweets on social media are our modern pellets, training us to keep coming back. When Harris worked at Google, he saw these principles deployed globally. He sat in the control room, watching a handful of engineers make decisions shaping a billion people's thoughts and feelings. The entire business model ran on one metric: engagement. Maximize screen time, because more screen time means more data collected and more ads sold. Your distraction, he realized, is their fuel. This is the engine of what Harvard professor Shoshana Zuboff calls surveillance capitalism. These companies aren't just selling ads, they're selling us. They build sophisticated models of you, a voodoo doll, as tech dissident Asa Raskin calls it. They gather every scrap of data, clicks, locations, conversations, making the doll more accurate. Then they test what makes it twitch, figuring out your deepest vulnerabilities to sell that knowledge to advertisers wanting to manipulate your behavior. This business model inevitably creates maximally distracting technology. Asa Raskin, who invented infinite scroll, that feature keeping you endlessly scrolling, told Hari he calculated his invention costs humanity 200,000 human lifetimes every single day. But there's an even darker side. The algorithms deciding what you see are designed to maximize engagement. And what have they learned about human nature? We stare at outrage longer than positivity. We're drawn to negativity. So the algorithms learned, if it's enraging, it's engaging. They systematically promote the most divisive, angry, extreme content because that's what glues us to screens. Hari saw terrifying real-world consequences in Brazil, where far-right politician Jair Bolsonaro rode to power on viral Facebook and YouTube disinformation. When he won, supporters chanted, "Facebook, Facebook, Facebook." They knew who'd help them win. This isn't accidental. Leaked internal Facebook documents confirmed it. Our algorithms exploit the human brain's attraction to divisiveness. When scientists proposed solutions, executives shut them down. The system works exactly as designed. At this point, you might think, this is overwhelming, but I just need more willpower. That's exactly what the tech industry wants you to think. Hari interviews Nir Eyal, another persuasive tech lab graduate who wrote Hooked, How to Build Habit-Forming Products. Eyal argues responsibility lies with individuals. Use the tools provided, like the Do Not Disturb button. Push the button, he tells Hari. Hari calls this cruel optimism, offering simplistic individual solutions to massive systemic problems. He uses a powerful analogy, the obesity crisis. For decades, we were told obesity was personal failing. We bought diet books, were told to have more self-control. But 95% of diets fail. Why? Because you can't solve a problem caused by an unhealthy food environment with willpower alone. You're running up a down escalator. Same with attention. It's not a fair fight. You, with limited willpower, face 1,000 engineers whose job is keeping you hooked. Digital diet books won't solve this crisis, just like regular diet books didn't solve obesity. This led Hari to investigate the final, perhaps most fundamental causes, dramatic changes to childhood. He tells the story of Lenore Skenazy, who in 2008 let her 9-year-old son ride the New York subway home alone, something she and every parent did as kids, and was promptly branded America's worst mom. This incident revealed a massive shift. In one generation, childhood moved almost entirely indoors. The free, unsupervised play that defined all human childhood has vanished. This devastates attention development. When children play freely, they learn crucial skills: creativity, negotiation, reading social cues, coping with frustration. They develop intrinsic motivation, pursuing things because they're meaningful, not for external rewards. This is the foundation of deep focus. Without it, kids struggle. Our schools make this worse. Driven by standardized testing frenzy, they've stripped out play, recess, anything fostering curiosity. Children are forced into a system deadening their intrinsic motivation, making many feel incompetent. Contrast this with Finland, with the world's most successful schools. Finnish children don't start formal school until age 7. Before that, they just play. They have almost no homework, very few tests, and by law, teachers must give 15 minutes of free play for every 45 minutes of instruction. Result? Finnish kids are among the world's most literate and focused. Hari concludes, our children's attention problems aren't a flaw in them. They're a flaw in the world we've built for them. So what's the way out? If individual solutions aren't enough, what can we do? Hari argues, we need attention rebellion, a movement to reclaim focus. He proposes 3 bold goals. 1. Ban surveillance capitalism. Just as we banned lead in paint, once we knew it damaged children's brains, we must ban the business model based on hacking our attention. This would force companies like Facebook to switch to subscriptions or become public utilities, aligning their interests with ours. 2. Introduce a 4-day workweek. Hari tells of a New Zealand company that switched to 4 days for the same pay. Result? Stress dropped. Productivity actually rose. Rested people focus better. 3. Rebuild childhood around free play. Create spaces in culture where children can again play freely, explore their world, and develop healthy attention foundations. This may sound impossible, but Hari reminds us every major social change, women's rights, gay rights, even the weekend itself, seemed impossible at first. They were won by ordinary people who banded together and demanded something better. We're not medieval peasants begging at King Zuckerberg's court. We're free citizens of democracies, and we own our own minds. The fight to reclaim them, Hari concludes, may be our time's defining struggle. After diving deep into stolen focus, it's hard not to feel both profound anger and immense relief. The anger comes from realizing our daily struggle to focus isn't personal weakness. It's a deliberate, profit-driven system designed to hijack our minds. But the relief comes from the book's central, liberating message: it's not your fault. For so long we've been told distraction is moral failing, that we just need to try harder, be more disciplined, find the right productivity hack. Hari systematically demolishes this myth, showing we're like people trying to stay thin while being force-fed junk food from morning till night. No amount of willpower consistently wins against an environment constantly working against you. This reframing is the book's greatest gift. It moves conversation from self-blame to collective action. The solution isn't finding a better digital diet book. It's changing the toxic food supply. The most powerful lesson, for me, is the connection Hari draws between individual attention and our collective ability to solve problems. He argues a society that can't pay attention can't face its biggest challenges. The climate crisis is the most urgent example. We're living in a burning house, but our smoke alarms are disabled by algorithm-fueled outrage and trivial distractions. A distracted population is docile, unable to organize, distinguish truth from lies, and hold power accountable. Reclaiming focus isn't just about productivity or calm, it's about our survival as a functioning democracy and species. So where do we begin? The systemic changes Hari calls for, banning surveillance capitalism, 4-day workweeks, are monumental and will take organized fighting. But every journey begins with a single step. Here are practical actions you can take today to begin your personal attention rebellion. 1. Schedule A. Do nothing, walk. For just 30 minutes today, walk and leave your phone at home. No podcast, no music. Just walk and let your mind wander. This isn't wasted time. It's essential mental maintenance. You'll be surprised by the ideas and clarity emerging from silence. 2. Practice monotasking. Choose one important task, homework, reading, a creative project. Set a timer for 25 minutes. Put your phone in another room, close all other tabs, and dedicate yourself to that one task. Experience what giving one thing undivided attention feels like, even briefly. 3. Reclaim your sleep. Tonight, protect your day's last hour. Put all screens away. Don't scroll in bed. Instead, read a physical book, listen to calm music, or just talk with family. Treat sleep not as luxury, but as the non-negotiable foundation of mental and physical health. That was a deep dive into stolen focus by Johann Hari. We've covered the core arguments and most powerful stories, but I'll be honest, a summary only takes you so far. The real magic happens when you read the book yourself. It's in the quiet moments when a particular study or simple phrase hits you unexpectedly. This summary helps you decide if this book deserves your time. If anything resonated, I truly believe you should grab a copy. Reading it isn't just learning. It's an experience that can genuinely change how you see the distracted world around you and your role within it. A link to the book is in the description. Also, if you found this summary valuable and want to continue exploring life-changing ideas, please hit that like button and subscribe to Billionaire's Bookshelf. It tells us we're on the right track and ensures you won't miss our next journey into another incredible book. Let's keep learning and growing together.